To get you caught up, The Guardian genuinely thinks that Thomas the Tank Engine is far-right propaganda. Classism, sexism, and anti-environmentalism verging on racism. In part 1, we met the brave, pioneering mind behind this earthquake of social commentary, Tracy Van something or other, a name which I may not have bothered to learn, but one which will nevertheless be etched on the annals of history, for she is a researcher on the intersection of social justice and pop culture. Pretty fucking heavy stuff. I already spent way too much time unfairly shitting on Tracy and her profession. Don't worry, there's more to come. So let's just jump right in and wrap up the cliffhanger we left the previous episode on. What stomach-churning evil caused Tracy to turn off Thomas for good? Oh, they insinuated that pink is a colour associated with girls. Those sick fucks. As a little aside, had this article been written in 2015 instead of 2014, then this section would have been all about transphobia. Tracy would have pointed out the fact that this mockery of gender fluidity directly contributes to the high prevalence of suicide amongst transgender individuals, and that the makers of Thomas and Friends are wading ankle deep in the blood of dysphoric teenagers. But back in 2014, the whole trans issue wasn't as fashionable as it is now. So this story wasn't transphobic. It is now, of course, because the Kardashians already invented transgenderism last year. But 2 years ago, there were literally 0 hairy-toed reality TV Armenians transitioning into a new gender. So transphobia didn't matter back then. That's how these things work. 2014, as you may remember, was the year that Beyonce and Taylor Swift invented feminism. So naturally, that's what this argument focuses on. The way Tracy describes this story is mostly factually accurate. She gets all the story beats correct, but somehow misses out on the glaringly obvious moral message to the episode. You know, the moral message designed for preschool children to understand. James, the red train, gets temporarily painted pink. He's made to go out and pick up the Fat Controller's granddaughter and take her and her friends to a birthday party. On the way, James's friends see him and laugh at him for being pink. This makes James sad. But then he picks up the children and they all love him for being pink. This makes James very happy. And the final line of the episode is...
James the bright pink engine was the hero of the day.
When he's caught, the other Trians, including our Thomas, viciously laugh and mock him. The poor Ben. Because my videos are serious business, I've actually gone ahead and watched the entire episode. Yeah, all 10 minutes of it. Which means that, due to this painstaking and courageous act of investigative journalism, I have also now become a researcher on the intersection of social justice and pop culture. PhD. Via the magic of an appeal to authority, I can use my newly minted credentials and my penetrating, immersive insight to reveal to you that the moral of this story is actually that you shouldn't get upset if people laugh at you, as beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and you'll eventually find someone who loves the way you look. Well, guess what? It's not okay. It's not okay. You think a little boy watching Thomas is going to file away the lesson that pink is okay for boys? Yes. No, man. What kids remember is that poor James was laughed at, cruelly.
Quickly, James rolled behind the last 2 trucks. Then Diesel shunted them away. Oh no! Diesel was surprised.
Faggot! Why don't you fucking kill yourself, you worthless pink cunt? You're a fucking embarrassment to your family. We'd all be happier without you. Do it, cunt! Fucking do it, cunt! Over and over again, because he looked different and was clad in a girly pink colour. Some of you may wish to point out that the meme of pink being for girls and blue being for boys is actually a social construct, which it mostly is. In fact, 100 years ago, pink was the colour associated with boys and blue associated with girls. There is absolutely nothing wrong with a boy wanting to dress in pink. It doesn't necessarily mean that the child is gay or transgender, and again, not that there's anything even slightly wrong with either of those things. Kids enjoy dressing up. They enjoy expressing themselves and being creative, and this is something I think should be encouraged. These are very easy moral conclusions to reach. No one should be patting themselves on the back because you have the moral wherewithal to witness a boy dressed in pink without dragging him down Main Street behind your pickup truck. However, that doesn't mean we have to totally ignore the social consequences of deviating from the norm. You will get mocked. You will get laughed at. You are not going to get very far in life with a thin skin, especially not if you enjoy looking or acting slightly different to the way that most other people do. The moral of this children's story is designed to help children cope with the reality of being different. Tracy is disgusted by this lesson. No one should ever have to manage their own feelings. No one should have to take responsibility for their own emotions. If someone insults you, upsets you, disagrees with you, or criticizes you, then that is life-threateningly serious. There's no toughening up, no laughing it off, no option to simply ignore and rise above it. You are a very special snowflake, and your feelings are really, really special. And you need to run and tell the teacher every time your feelings get hurt, because your personal happiness is society's responsibility. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will rape your soul into 1,000 pieces and display the tattered shreds in Satan's trophy case, letting all the denizens of the pit take succor from your ceaseless torment. And we wonder where all these sensitive crybaby pussies come from. Kids are being taught to be weak. They're being taught to be fragile, and this is exactly how it fucking happens. In amongst all that pink bullshit, there was this classic bit of Guardian race baiting. For the record, all the villains on Thomas and Friends are the dirty diesel engines. I'd like to think there was a good environmental message in there, pet. But when the good engines pump out white smirk, and the bad engines pump out black smirk, and they're all pumping out fucking smirk like, it's not hard to make the leap into the race territory. It never fucking is for you cunts. This is why people think Guardianistas are obsessed with race. Whereas most people wouldn't find it all that surprising to learn that the smoke from a diesel engine is darker than the smoke from a steam engine, a researcher on the intersection of social justice and pop culture would see it for what it is. Nothing but pure, unadulterated racism. Because if she didn't see that, she'd pretty much be out of a job. You see, a researcher on the intersection of social justice and pop culture isn't a researcher in the traditional sense of the word. She doesn't pore over polls or statistics, she doesn't log any lab time, she doesn't examine facts to see what she can learn from them, she doesn't design and carry out experiments. She watches cartoons and listens to shitty pop songs and finds any tenuous reason whatsoever to call them racist and sexist. She very much starts out with her conclusion and then works backwards from there.
Everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out.
She literally just sits around all day, points at random objects and calls them sexist and racist. My shoes are racist. They're black, so that means I'm literally walking on black people all day. Because any object that is black immediately means black people. My phone is a rape culture roadmap. Every night, without consent, I violate that saucy little sloot with a micro USB cable. Yeah, some victim-blaming mansplainer is now probably going to tell me that a message frequently pops up on my phone telling me that the battery is low and that it needs charging. But this doesn't equal ongoing affirmative consent, you fucking rape admiral. Mobile phones have literally brainwashed an entire generation of young men into a raging tsunami of cunt-rending testosterone. Be very wary of any man in your life who owns a phone, ladies, because that crouching sex beast is ready to pounce. My light switch is racist, of course. It literally eradicates blackness. With a single click of white privilege, it colonizes the once proud black space of my bedroom in an instant. And you know what? I've just done an informal survey, and there is not one single trans woman of colour in a position of power in my bedroom. If there was, do you think this situation with the white switch would have remained such an issue? Then there's my front door. I mean, it's not black, but it is basically a spawn point for rapists. The night is clearly racist. I mean, it's black and crime goes up at night. So it's not hard to make the leap into race territory. This can of Coke is misogynistic. I mean, it looks exactly like a penis. It's clearly a phallic object, which means it's either excluding women or threatening women, whichever is easiest for whatever argument I'm plugging this shit into. I mean, it doesn't actually look like a penis, of course. You could just as easily picture it as a head, a leg, an arm. But to my knowledge, there's no money in randomly asserting that things look like or represent an arm. Nor can you use that assertion to spin off a fuckload of other pre-prepared cliches about how the world is endlessly unfair to one gender. So best just to insist that everything is a penis. What about the burqa? That trendy stamp of worrying Saudi imperialism. The fashion that in recent years has been, blowing up from Karachi to Mogadishu. Isn't that just cloth blackface? I think those bigots need to take a long, hard look in the mirror. Or failing that, if there's no mirror around, I guess just look at the person next to them. And they need to check their privilege. They need to ask their husband's permission to check their privilege. Maybe it takes 2 women to check one woman's privilege under Sharia law, or 4 women to check one man's privilege. I'm not sure. The Guardian has assured me that Sharia law is a very progressive system. Thus, I presume they have a framework in place for privilege checking. My point is they need to stop being racist. It's disgusting. It's very important that enlightened people like Tracy and myself point this stuff out to you plebs. Otherwise, how would you know to get offended by it? I mean, if you don't teach people to be offended, they might end up going entire days without feeling sorry for themselves even once. This shit is just so easy, I could go on all day. It's also completely parody-proof. There's no possible way to exaggerate the nonsense that these loopy cretins come up with, because the entire field of research on the intersection of social justice and pop culture is already pushed right up against the fucking extremes of paranoia and projection. And that's all it is at the end of the fucking day. This discipline tells us nothing about pop culture, nothing about genuine social justice. All it does is give us a frightening Freudian insight into the psyche of the kind of person who sees racism and sexism literally everywhere. Tracy is projecting so hard right now that I can see her insecurities on the fucking moon. And she actually gets paid to waffle on like this. This is how she earns her money. What's worse is there appears to be a few people who do genuinely take her seriously. Emily, the only lady trained to get name-checked in the opening credits, and the only one who regularly hangs out with the boy trains, is said to know her stuff. That's the sole description of her personality, like. What does that even fucking mean? It means she's smarter than the boy trains. It's a very common trope. You know, the female character who is sensible, intelligent, diligent, responsible, who has to clean up the silly boy's mess for them. It's a cliche, it's an example of shitty or deliberately simplistic writing. Once again, hopefully for the last fucking time, you'd think that this would be quite obvious to a researcher on the intersection of social justice and pop culture. Come on, man, you know she uses this website for like 90% of her sources, you just fucking know. Now, this trope, this set of tropes existing doesn't mean that society hates men, or that men are under attack, or that the sky is falling, or that we're on the cusp of an imminent feminist revolution to install an oppressive gyno-reich, and that every male is soon to receive a knock on the door from a leather-clad, government-sponsored cuck squad fronted by Julie Bindel, wielding a pair of secateurs and the kind of rictus grin that only falls across her gnarled face when the beast inside her senses that castration is imminent. But despite just about managing not to get overexcited, this trope is still undeniably a negative representation of men. So for Tracy to try and spin this as if it's actually sexist against women because it's somehow insufficient or impenetrably obtuse, just goes to underline what total bollocks her entire profession is. You can clearly make any story or character decision fit whatever preconceived narrative you want. You don't even have to try hard, even if it's directly and starkly the exact opposite of what you've set out to prove. And Tracy has set out to prove that everything is sexist towards women, so it's no wonder that she finds this everywhere. If all you have is a gender studies femhammer, then every problem starts to look like it's literally Rape-mageddon.